Good evening. I'm Corey Powell, and I am the Director in the Office of Institutional Diversity, and I have the privilege of serving as Subcommittee Chair for the Committed to Change Committee. And we are excited about tonight. You're in store for a great learning experience and hopefully an engaging dialogue with our panelists and others. It's my privilege to first bring up Ms. Glenda Mathis, who is the Executive Director of the YWCA and is our hostess for tonight. So please help me welcome Ms. Glenda Mathis.
Well, thank you. I know you have a great program, and so I'm not going to take very much of your time at all. All I want to do is say welcome. This room was built especially for events just like tonight, where we can have community engagement and conversation. And so we're welcoming all of you here, and I hope this won't be the last time you come back, so you can come back and see all the magical things that the YWCA does in our community, which I know y'all are going to be talking about tonight. Not specifically about the Y, but all the magical things that are happening in Lubbock and that we want to have happen. So please let us know if we can help you further your pleasures and convenience for tonight. There's water up here, restrooms back there. So anything we can do, we're happy to help you.
Thank you so much, Glenda. And she's real modest. But the Y is a phenomenal partner and a tremendous support, a resource in our community. And you can learn more about the Y at YWCA Lubbock, YWCALubbock.org. She was supposed to say that. So go there to learn more how you can volunteer, get involved with all of that. Next, I want to just welcome and thank some of our distinguished guests who are with us tonight. First, Mayor Dan Pope, who you'll hear from here shortly, Councilman Steve Massengale, as well as Texas Tech Athletic Director Kirby Holcutt, and a host of others. So now we'll hear from our Mayor Dan Pope.
Thank you, Corey. I think it's appropriate that we're at the YWCA tonight, because unless something's changed since last week, their mission is empowering women and ending racism. And I think that's something opposite, ending racism, empowering women? Okay, sorry, but I think both are so vital, and so it's something we can all get behind, I believe. So it's good to be here tonight. Thanks for letting me share a little bit with you. I had a chance this summer to talk with some of you, some of the Black Student Athlete Association, when we met at the the indoor training facility. Kirby and I both had a chance to be there that day, and I'm thankful for what you're doing, and I'm looking forward to this event tonight. There's a couple ladies behind me that I really don't trust having my back turned to them. These two right here, okay? Yeah. And they're not going to tell stories on me because I can tell stories on them, but it's good to have you, Jerry. We're glad you're with us today. The pride of, there you go. We're glad you're here, and our other distinguished panelists. Thanks for making a difference, students. Thank you, guys. Thanks for embracing change and leading change. We really appreciate that. I could read the rest of these prepared remarks, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to read this really special proclamation here. We're pretty tight at the city, but we break out our special letterhead for things like this, this gold leaf letterhead. So isn't that right, Sheila? Yeah.
Everybody doesn't get that.
Everybody doesn't get it. That's right. Yeah. So this special recognition says, whereas the Black Student Athlete Alliance of Texas Tech University serves as an affinity space for Black student athletes and their allies throughout Texas Tech, and works to organize and unify the voices, especially of Black student athletes, alongside their allies in an effort to leverage their collective platform for symbolic and systemic change. And whereas the Black Student Athletes Alliance mission is to develop, coordinate, and execute messaging, programming, and a continued commitment to the holistic experience of Black student athletes, utilizing their organizational priorities of educate, empower, and unify. To do so, and whereas the Black Student Athlete Alliance calls for holistic support of student athletics as more than just athletes, for schedule adjustments many student athletes require, as well as for an overall commitment to East Lubbock and local Lubbock communities of color. Furthermore, the organization is open to all, but reinforces the truth that all lives cannot matter until Black lives matter, particularly by employing educational trainings and workshops to combat various racial and social injustice issues. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the Black Student Athlete Alliance as an important voice and necessary advocate on Texas Tech University's campus and within the Lubbock community, it is also appropriate to recognize this organization's important role in helping Black student athletes and their allies build their advocacy and expression as they build bridges and trails together, both on campus and in our community. Now, therefore, we, the mayor and the city council of the great city of Lubbock, do hereby recognize the Black Student Athlete Alliance and encourage all citizens to support this organization and their efforts. And we're all looking forward to tonight. This is signed the 18th day of February, 2021. We were supposed to have done this last week, to sign that date, but it's still good. Signed by the mayor and all 6 members of the Lubbock City Council. Congratulations to all you guys. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Corey, back to you.
I got it. Good evening and welcome to BSAA Presents Lubbock's Hidden Figures, a conversation highlighting the intersectionality within our community. We are excited to host this inaugural conversation as our athletic department's marquee Black History Month event. I am Jessica Gray, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Assistant Athletics Director for the JT and Margaret Talkington Leadership Academy. I will be co-moderating this conversation tonight alongside one of the bright, newest additions to the Red Raider family, Kaylee Johnson.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kaylee Johnson, a senior on the women's track and field team and sport management graduate student. I'm here on behalf of the Black Student Athlete Alliance. Like the mayor said, the Black Student Athlete Alliance was born in August of 2020 with the purpose to organize and unify the voices of Black student athletes and allies in an effort to leverage their collective platform for symbolic and systemic change.
Perfect. So now let's get to introducing our esteemed panelists, 4 of whom are in person and 1 is joining us virtually. First up, Lady Raider great and Texas Tech Hall of Famer and current principal at Matthews Alternative High School for Lubbock ISD, Carolyn Thompson. To her left, we have Lubbock City Council representative for District 2 and former juvenile probation supervisor, Sheila Patterson Harris.
Next, we have Chris Chambers, co-owner of Chambers Engineering in Lubbock and vice chair of community development for the Lubbock Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. Excuse me. Joining us virtually, we have Lubbock native and a former 4-time Pro Bowl selection and now defensive backs coach for the Green Bay Packers, Jerry Gray. And last but certainly not least, Dr. Reagan Higgins, an associate professor in the Texas Tech Department of Mathematics and Statistics, and one of the first 2 African-American women to earn a doctoral degree in mathematics from the University of Nebraska. So we're going to get started with our first question. Everyone can share about their journey and connection to Lubbock and East Lubbock.
I'll start. So again, my name is Reagan Higgins Sawatu. I came to Lubbock in 2008. Honestly, I came because my husband, then fiance, was here. He was a faculty member at the university, and we did not want to start our marriage apart. So I made the choice to be with my spouse instead of following my direct career path. So I joined the faculty in 2008, and I've been here since then.
I'll go ahead, Sheila, because I know you're going to top me. My name is Carolyn Thompson, and I'm originally from Hobbs, New Mexico, and graduated from high school and came over to Texas Tech on a full scholarship to play basketball. After my basketball career, I decided that I wanted to go into teaching and coaching, and so I stayed here in Lubbock, and I became the teacher and coach at Estacada High School. After teaching and coaching for 9 years, I decided that I needed to make more of an impression on kids, or be able to have more effect on kids' life, and that's when I got into administration. And then I became the principal at Alderson Middle School, the assistant principal, then the principal. Then I was a principal at Estacada High School, and now I'm the principal at Matthews Alternative High School.
Well, welcome to District 2, everybody. You're smack dab in the middle of it. I am Sheila Patterson Harris. I was born and raised right here in Lubbock, Texas. Raised on the hill, Chapman Hill. I'm seeing Kevin McConnell back there. He knows what I'm talking about. Spent a lot of time with family and down in the flat area in Lubbock, which was one of the areas where blacks in the city were kind of located. I attended school at Isles Elementary. Struggs went to junior high school at Struggs Junior High School, a short trip to O.L. Sladen, and then back to Dunbar Struggs High School, because that's how it was for us. That was the path that we would take. I say that because school for me here in Lubbock was very vital. So many of the educators that were in our schools lived down the street, lived next door, attended church with us. So there was a huge impact of all of the other citizens in the city. So for me in Lubbock, that was huge. And it really had a lot to do with the path that I chose and some of the paths that I did not choose as I began to make my way through life. I went away to college and for 4 years and came back here to Lubbock because Lubbock was my home and I wanted to try to make a difference. Ran smack dab in the middle to some racism, and I couldn't do the things that I wanted to do, but I thought I'd do something to make a difference. Went on my path and somehow ended up in juvenile probation, where I feel like I was able to really touch lives and have my life touched as well. Retired in 2015, lost my mind and said I was going to run for city council, and doggone it, I won the election. So it was like, you have to do something. So I've been there since then, connected to this city. I talk about it because this is my home. And I love it. There's so many things that need to be done, but there's so many things that have been done. And I'm excited for the things that have happened in my life.
Coach, if you don't mind, I'll go before you. I know you got a long story to tell as well as long as Sheila's. So my name's Chris Chambers. I'm a native of West Texas. I'm not a native of Lubbock, but my story is a little bit different than most of you all. I came to Texas Tech in 1993 on an academic scholarship. So finished school here at Texas Tech, went to work at a firm across town. In 2002, we started Chambers Engineering, and I've been here ever since. Fell in love with the community, started raising my kids here, and that's my story.
Well, my story is, like you said, I grew up in Lubbock, Texas. I went to Lubbock Estacada High School. And my connection to Texas Tech is my wife, Sherry. She actually went to Texas Tech. I actually went to the school down south, University of Texas. But I come back there every summer, and we started the foundation and to come back and to help, students there in Lubbock, to get scholarships, to go to Texas Tech, to help them understand the little things that seeing to me and visualizing things, actually being able to see what you can do is big for me. I'm more of a visual guy. So with our foundation, we also, we didn't do it this year because of COVID, but every year we've always had some students come from Lubbock High School and actually go to NFL weekend. And we try to get them chance to see what the NFL is like and what other areas is like and stuff like that. And that's really what our big deal is, just, being associated with Lubbock. Even though we don't actually live there, our hearts are still there, and we try to give back every chance we get.
Thank you all. So this next question kind of hits home to exactly what this conversation is about, which is intersectionality. So again, intersectionality is defined as the interconnected nature of social categorizations such as race, class, and gender as they apply to a given individual group. So any of you could pick first and who wants to answer this, but what does intersectionality mean to you? And how do you bring your identities, both visible and invisible, to the work that you do and the spaces that you occupy?
I'll go first. Interconnectivity means that we're making a connection with an entity that may not be able to make the connection itself. And when I say that, that can encompass anything in life. But based on what I thought, whatever I received the invitation to be on the panel, being an administrator in Lubbock, Texas, then I do see where there may not be that streamline from the Lubbock East community to Texas Tech University. As an administrator, I have seen many kids that are very talented, but meanwhile, they don't get that opportunity, and it's because of lack of exposure and lack of experience. And so being seated on this panel, I thought it was important for me, and I most definitely want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity, but I think it's important for me to make that streamline to Texas Tech University and other avenues so that the kids that I work with, and they're not necessarily just from East Lubbock, but any kid that I work with, giving them the opportunity through experience and exposure so they can experience higher level education.
Thank you.
I'll jump in here and I'll be pretty brief. I have a saying that says, you can't be what you don't see. And I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we provide the things that are, that will give opportunities. It's always a choice for individuals, but giving them an opportunity to make the choices to be wherever it is. Opportunity is a huge part of it. And I think so many of our young people, no matter where they are, but specifically in the Black community, are not given the opportunity or don't always know how to seize opportunity to get in the places that they need to be. And I think this is a start by having this conversation. There are many more that need to happen, but having this conversation so that we can interact and they see us interacting and know that that's a place that something that they can do as well to move themselves forward.
I will say intersectionality is the coming together, what we have in common. Being on the university's campus, honestly, I don't interact with very many students that look like me, right? So what do I bring in that intersectionality is to show, quite frankly, white students what we have in common. That I am female, I study mathematics, I am a mother, I'm a wife, I'm in a sorority, I'm a Christian. Those things you also bring in addition to what you see at face value. You don't get to experience all of those things if people stop at what they see. My very first day in class at Texas Tech, I introduced myself as Dr. Higgins, and I had a student that told me, you can't have a PhD. And I said, why? And he said, because my mother told me that Black women don't have PhDs. It's 2008. Okay, sir, this is what we're going to do. So I had to continue to show him that we do have things in common, right? You have an interest in this field, and I can teach you something. And so that was something that I had to work through in spite of what he saw, right? So you say things that people see and they don't see. Eventually we learned a lot of things that we had in common, but his experiences and his lack of exposure, honestly, had him think that I was an anomaly. And I'm like, I come from a place where lots of Black women have PhDs. Now, yes, there are few, but there's none, So you have to think about what you see face value and what you don't see, but you have to be willing to have a conversation and to think at that time that he was still being taught those things. That was the hardest part to grasp, that it's 2008 and you are still being taught this, and you are comfortable enough to say that. So as a brown person, at least generally in culture, we think a lot of things, but there would not be a place that I would say, you can't do that. And at that time, white privilege wasn't a word. We didn't use that. But his privilege showed up, and he didn't respect me as the authority figure in that room. And his classmates looked at him like, did he say that? And I'm thinking the same thing, but I can't show that. And I'm like, well, this semester, you're going to get to learn something differently. And then you carry on, and it's more, give me the opportunity to see you, and don't judge a book by its cover. So when you walk in that experience, your very first day in the classroom, you're like, I'm going to say I chose to come here for this, this is not what I want to bring. I want to show you that I can give you something, honestly, that you're not going to get from a white man. I know you're used to seeing white men in this role, maybe white women, but what I can give you, you're not going to get. And I can engage you in a way that they just can't engage you. And that is what that intersectionality brings.
To me, to add on what Reagan's talking about, it's more than just the disrespect and the recognizing that we all have a different social background. It's not about just the color of our skin or where we come from. It's about being able to connect and make a solution to the problems that we now see. Now, COVID brought on a totally different society in the last year. Everybody was forced to sit still, and everybody saw some things that a lot of folks had been denying for years. And now, all of a sudden, privilege is commonplace in conversation. Before, that was not ever brought up. And what you see in intersectionality is the fact that we're all different, but that's what broods the game. We got to use the gifts that we've been given to help bridge those gaps. So that's what I do. I work in an industry that was male-dominated. There was very few women. There were certainly very few women of color. Now we're starting to see more of that, and that's what we have to encourage. And that's part of what intersectionality, what we got to change that perspective as to, hey, ultimately everybody wants to make it to the next level. Everybody wants to be successful. But until we have those conversations about, hey, we're all different, but we can all make a better place, we got to get into that.
To me, I think intersectionality is something to where when you look at, especially in the NFL, being in the NFL, I get the privilege of seeing black and white every day interact on a team. And our main goal is to win. But I think something that, last year, this past summer, when everything was at a standstill, and it gave the NFL a chance to actually see what Colin Kaepernick was talking about 5 years ago and what other people was talking about. And then all of a sudden, everybody was at home and it was quiet. And we got a chance to see what it really looked like, And then I thought, because, we in our team meeting, we got back to start in training camp, our players were able to see and hear what black people were actually going through. Not only did they hear us in the meeting, they were actually on our side. And so that gave us a chance as a team to bond and for them to really feel pain of what we have been going through for a long time. And I think the biggest thing that society is a little different from my world, because my world is I have to work with black and white every day, and we have one common goal, and that's to win. But when you're not in that, we still have to be able to get white America to see our pain and why we're so far behind. And we're not asking for you to give us a handout. We're just asking for you to be fair. And I think thinking outside the box, even in NFL, we actually go through it every day when we're talking about hiring process. We do the same stuff that the real world goes through. And because, we don't want you to just give us a head coaching job because we're black. We want you to give us something because we're good and because we've earned it. And that doesn't mean that you have to minimize yourself. That's the thing that I think a lot of times we get stuck on, is that when we have panels like this, the other person on the other side seem to think that we want something from them. We just want to be next to you. We don't want anything from you. We want to be adding to you. And I think that's the biggest picture. When I look at it, I always try to think outside the box. How can I add to someone other than having you think that I want something from you to take away?
That's great. Thank you. Okay, next question. Maybe Ms. Patterson Harrison will want to start us off with this one. What are some common misconceptions about Lubbock, and East Lubbock specifically, that you can provide some insight on and maybe dispel?
Jerry can help with this too. We grew up not too far from each other, because we're speaking about the eastern portion of the city. I don't call it east or west. I say it's eastern, because there are different parts. One of the misconceptions is that everybody black lives there. That's one misconception. The other misperception is the fact that people who live in that area don't have anything, don't want anything, and that it's not a safe place. I was trying to think of all of the ones that come up. We want to be given things. Man, there's a lot. That we're angry. That we're selfish. I've been here a long time. Help me out, Jerry, if I'm missing something.
Yeah, to me, I think, that we want to, again, if you look at it, you don't want to go to East Lubbock because they'll rob you.
Yeah.
Or, that there's something wrong with East Lubbock. And, the thing that I grew up there, so I understand, the good fortune that I've had is that I've lived in Washington, D.C., I've lived in Seattle, I've lived in Buffalo, New York. Right now I'm in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I've lived in Nashville, Tennessee. And the thing that Lubbock has that all those cities have is that there's going to be a good part and there's going to be a bad part. And at the end of the day, it's about what you make out of those parts. And East Lubbock has the same thing that all the rest of the other cities have. All those kids want to do over there is to get a chance to go to school, get a good education, get a good paying job, and they want to make it. They don't want you to hand them out stuff. The problem is that when East Lubbock don't have that opportunity, then they result to the other things. And I think that's the mindset that we have to get out of. And that's the mindset that we don't want you coming as tech students. As soon as you get enrolled in tech, they tell you don't go to East Lubbock, because I think that's a bad thing to carry on.
And I was just going to say that some of the things that I listed are things that I've heard that other people say, but they're not things that I've lived. Being from the eastern portion of the city, been there all my life, raised my children there, married and have been there all of these years. And I wouldn't be any place else. A lot of times, some of the kiddos that I work with all the time, they didn't believe that I lived where I did. And they were like, well, you should have a big house someplace and whatever. I choose to be where I am because it's a great place to be. And no different than if you were to say, young man, that, hey, I like where I am, man, where I am is a great place. It's no different. The only difference is the story that gets told to you comes from someone else who has no idea. But the stories that can be told by so many of the people, Jerry and Cliff, I have to remember to call him Jerry and not call him what I know him as. The stories that we know, the great things that happened, the experiences, the good times, the people who impacted our lives and made us go in the direction that we did, that they planned. So those things were happening. Just like they were happening in other places, those things were happening and are still happening in that very part of the city. It's just that it doesn't get talked about. The media doesn't do us any justice, where they only tell you the stuff that is a negative part of the community. But there are great things that happen. There are great people.
Just
No different.
to reiterate, I'm not a Lubbockite. I have 2 young children, 8 and 10, and we have friends that live in Eastern Lubbock. I'll use your word, Eastern Lubbock, and friends that don't. But it was time this past summer, they went to a summer camp at Parkway Somerville, and my children had the absolute best time because they were with their people. And that's something to say that when you go to school, well, when you're the only Black person in the class, and then I don't think the world recognizes the weight that little children carry to know that they are different. And for my children, being different is not as different as it was for me, because that's the world that they grew up in, right? They know that they're the only Black person in the class. So it's not such a big thing. But then when you go to the place and you see other people that look like you, then the questions come, well, why do I go to this school? Well, why do I live where, I want you to have this exposure because there's something important about your culture. There's some things that you just need to be with your people to experience. And I had those experiences as well. And you want people to realize that I am not better. I just made a different choice, right? So I want my children to be knowledgeable. So you can choose to live where we live, or you can choose to live in Eastern Lubbock. I don't want you to think that one is better or worse than the other. It's about exposure. And how can I, in good conscience, not expose my children to themselves? So you take the summertime and you say, this is an opportunity where you're gonna go spend 12 weeks with all brown girls and all brown boys, and they did not miss a day, dropped me off early. And with the first day we picked them up early and they were like, take us back. We are on the loop and they are upset and we're like, okay, let's turn around, we're gonna call. They're sure you can bring, like, do not come and pick me up. That's something that they had never had. So being the only one is not new to them, but they enjoy being with their people. So where do you go get that? In Eastern Lubbock. So as soon as it opens, this is where, and they're like, oh, we going in this summer? This is what we're gonna do. So they look forward to being with their people. And of course, I'm gonna give you that experience.
And the BSAA platform matters. You all have the opportunity to reach into those communities and have an impact that's different than what we have on a daily basis. Adrian's name is recognizable out at Lubbock Cooper. If I say Adrian Fry, every kid out there at the school district knows exactly who he is. But when you go over to Alderson, they may not have that kid. They may not recognize your name. So you should use that platform to reach back to those kids and show them that, hey, not only can we be successful athletes, we can be successful people, and it gives them something to look up to. Absolutely what Ms. Patterson said. You can only be what you see. And that means a lot because we are all products of our surroundings. So that's important as student athletes, is to use your platforms, reach out to those kids. And a lot of times people believe that the schools on that side of town are inferior. We got really gifted teachers on that side of town. There's gifted administrators over there. There's people over there that are incredible in education. Some of the education professionals on that side of town are as good as any school in town. So it's important to make sure that everybody knows that there's equity in all of those, in that neighborhood, just the same way it is in my neighborhood. Just because my kids don't go to school in East Lubbock, hey, there's benefit in knowing good people in every neighborhood.
That's great. Thank you all for sharing. My last question before I pass it over to Kaylee. What were your opportunities in your tenure at Texas Tech or your time as a member of the Lubbock community that have been influential to where you are today?
I'll start. I'm an analytical mind, so it was punishment when I was at Texas Tech. I'm not going to even kid you. No, it was lots of long nights. But you know, one of the things that I learned most in my opportunities at Texas Tech probably came after I was a student. After I was a student, I had the opportunity to get in and do work for a guy across town. He had lots of project work on the campus, so I was able to meet and shake hands with folks that, in my opinion, had some visions that I didn't have at that time. You know, fortunately, my brother and I had always had aspirations of being company owners. We had aspirations of wanting to be our own bosses, but you have to come in contact with people who are visionaries.
Yeah.
20 years ago, we had to meet some of those visionaries. There's people that are still at Texas Tech to this day. Teresa Drool. There was a guy named Mike Ellicott, Kirby Hoka. We sat in meetings with visionaries every day, and those planning meetings mean so much to me as a member of the Texas Tech alum, but also as a person, because unless you come in contact and you get information from those visionaries, you won't ever make it. So every time you get a chance, use your platform to have a conversation with Kirby. Use your platform to have a conversation with Corey Powell. Those guys are incredible visionaries. And if you get what they have in their mind, or even a portion of what they have in their mind, the sky's the limit.
As a student athlete out at Tech, and you all know in the 80s, Carolyn Thompson was just a basketball player and a student. I mean, we didn't get the accolades or get the glory that everybody else get. But one of the things that I've learned being out at Tech, and one of the things that I still treasure as being an athlete, a student out at Tech, now in my field, I work with kids. There's never been an opportunity for kids that Texas Tech did not open up their arms to. A lot of the students from Texas Tech have come over to the school to mentor to kids, to be a role model to kids. So I would have to say my experience out at Tech, it made connections with people that I can now not necessarily use, but network with, so that kids that I serve that may not be as fortunate get an opportunity to network with people that are in higher ed?
Thank you.
Well, man, I tell you, I sit and look at things from a different angle because I've been here in Lubbock most of my life and have seen things. I happen to be the daughter of a young man who in 1958 went to Texas Tech and was turned around and told him that he couldn't go there because Texas Technological School, that's what it was before, was only for whites. And the president of the school showed him that in the catalog. I grew up in a family where my aunt, who was the founder, the owner of the only black private school here in Lubbock, Texas, attempted to get into Texas Tech on several times. And finally, she was able to enter Texas Tech. Her name is Lucille S. Graves, as the first African-American graduate student there at Tech. So the relationship in growing up was not one that was sound. I'll be honest with you there. Because in my dealings, it became a place where it was just something over there and it was not something that you could obtain or that you really felt that you were welcome to be a part of. And I've seen that so much. And if I get off, you tell me, but I just got to talk about what I'm talking about. And there are so many students that I've come across that have had those same feelings because they have not felt welcome. And as a result, those students have graduated from Estacada, from Dunbar, those schools, and have left this city. And when they left, they took things with them and that they never made their ways back. Jerry Gray is an example. He's never made his way back to Lubbock and all the things that he has to offer. So those were the relationships that I saw and that I and so many people felt that they could not be a part of Tech. I have a young son who graduated salutatorian from Estacada High School, and he left this city to go to school, and he's never been back. So those are the things that I've seen. I went off to school myself to North Texas State University, now University of North Texas. That tells you how long ago it was. And I returned, and I did attend Tech because I wanted to do something different, and I decided I was going to do it. I was a wife, a mom. So I was not your traditional student. So my thought on it, I'd been some places and done some things and said, I'm going to do what I want to do. So as a result, I went to Tech. It ended up being a great experience for me. And so what I try to do is share my story with folks to say that at the beginning, it was not a place that I felt that I could be. But at the end of the day, I made myself there and I studied communication disorders. And even though I didn't use that later on in life, but just I think the experience of being at Tech, when before I had those crazy ideas and feeling, unwelcome there was something that I needed to experience for myself. And I think it's something that we get to share with so many of the students and let them know that there is an opportunity for them there. But on the flip side of that, Texas Tech needs to make sure that they show and extend the hand and let students know that they're welcome as well.
That's great. Thank you. Anybody else have anything to add to that one? All right.
I think that conversation is a great segue into our next question. How do we bridge that gap between to create opportunities between the greater Lubbock community and the Texas Tech community, and how can student athletes in the athletic department be involved in this?
I'll start. I believe that we can bridge that gap because we have to figure out a way to retain talent. It's not about just being fast on the track or being really athletic on the football field. When we bring talent to Lubbock and they're at Texas Tech as a student athlete, they need to stay in Lubbock as business professionals. They need to stay in Lubbock as family people. They need to stay in Lubbock as mothers and dads. And I think that's how we bridge that gap. We have to open our doors to more opportunity. One thing that we get behind the eight ball, everybody gets in one track and nobody wants to reach out and extend a hand, but we've got to change that in order to make our communities better. So that's one thing we got to do is make sure that we use your platform and our platform to shake more hands, meet more people, and keep people in Lubbock. I know it's a tough community to live in, but once it grows on you, it does. And I think we'll all be better for it if we do just that.
To me, I think one thing that I think you can do is, like, when you're a student athlete and you have a high school, or even an elementary school over in East Lubbock, middle school over in East Lubbock, you know, I think that will help you if you can actually go and mentor one of those students and talk to them and kind of feel what they're feeling while you are in school as a student athlete. So now when you get a chance to, you know, hopefully if you're playing professional football, baseball, basketball, soccer, whatever, you know, that'll give you a chance to say, okay, I've mentored in East Lubbock, and then I understand what those kids are going through. So that kid that I've mentored may have aspirations and now saying, you know what, that person from Texas Tech came over, talked to me while I was in high school, middle school, and that kind of changed your mindset a little bit. But if I don't see you until you get a chance to recruit me because I'm a good football player, basketball player, my mindset's already made up. And that's where you kind of get in trouble if you don't bridge that gap of stepping across University, coming down 19th Street and going down 4th Street and saying, okay, who can I help as a middle school student? And if I want them to come to Texas Tech, I need to step across there and let them see Tech before they actually get on my campus. And then that way you'll change a lot of kids' mind other than waiting until they get in high school and then all the rest of the other countries recruiting them. And now you're behind because like Sheila said, that's a mystique over there. And they're saying they're not coming that way unless I'm giving Tech something. And if as Tech, you want to give your time first in order for you to get those students second.
I'm glad you asked. What can you do?
Go ahead. Okay. One thing I would say is the university has to be, I'm a big believer in what's your motivation. So your motivation has to be genuine in what you're trying to do and what you want to attain. I would rather you not come and be genuine in not coming or come for the look of things. I just don't work well in that space. And we read that well. So sometimes when the reception is not, or when you aren't well received, that is because of the energy that's being brought. So you have to, in my opinion, the university has to create the space in which the student athletes feel that doing that mentoring, or you yourself doing that mentoring, is valued. It can't be something that's done because now George Floyd has died and we think this is what we need to do. There were brown athletes before this. There are going to be brown athletes after that. Those things have to happen because that's something that the university genuinely believes in. That's not something that anyone can teach you per se. That has to be intrinsic. You have to want to do those things because you believe in the betterment of a space. Period. If you don't believe in the betterment of the space, then just don't. I have greater respect for people to say, this is the line that I walk and I'm not interested in that, than you walking the line or attempting to be an ally for the optics. So if you are interested in creating a space where we all feel welcome, where there's inclusivity, do the things that you would want to be done to you. And people say that all the time, but it's true. So for example, I volunteered in my daughter's classroom because I wanted to know what she was learning. And they were like, you're going to go? Well, yeah, because I want to know what she's learning. Why is that surprising to you that I have this interest in my child's education? Everyone else has this interest in their child's education. I have a job that allows my schedule to be a little bit more flexible. But other brown mothers have this same interest. They may have a different job. So don't perceive me as, or perceive us as, that interest doesn't exist. So I was genuine in my motives, and then they're like, well, are you going to come and keep volunteering? Well, maybe not, but my interest was genuine. I wasn't there. I didn't even help my own child. I helped other students because I wanted to simply know what they were learning and to give them a different view of, oh, there are Black professionals that work at Texas Tech. No, I'm not Jalea's mom. My name is Dr. Higgins, and I need you to call me that, right? Those are the things they're like, oh, you're not a medical doctor? Well, let's have a conversation about all the types of doctors, the exposure that you need to create. But my interest was genuine. And I've been asked repeatedly, or are you going to come back? Well, COVID has changed those things, so I'm not. So the university has to create the space where you value those things, and you don't value them because something has happened. You value them because those are your values, and that's not something we as brown people can teach you to have that intrinsic motivation. But once your athletes show that interest, don't penalize them or make them feel any way but proud or great to want to do those things. And not that it should be rewarded, but it definitely needs to be acknowledged that the things that they are doing are going to contribute to them as human beings, to them as athletes, to them as students. And then the university's benefit may be later. Don't do it for the immediate gratification. We all know that that's not really worthwhile. So whatever these athletes choose to do, and in 4 years later, you have more students interested in Texas Tech, well, then that's a benefit. So don't look for it now, and be genuine in your motives.
And I think the more opportunities, less fortunate, and I don't want to say less fortunate because you have students that live on the east side that are very fortunate, but they may not have the background that leads them to college. One of the things that I've learned as an administrator, not everybody have the conversation regarding higher ed. Not everybody have the conversation in their household as to how to get to higher ed. I have been in churches, I have been in events on the Lubbock East Side, and I've seen the men's basketball program. I've seen the men's basketball program to bring the entire family. Okay, you're bringing those individuals, and I'm pretty sure the football, women's basketball, et cetera, so not to negate anybody. But here's the thing, we got to change our mindset. Okay, we can go in that community, we learn from them, but they also have to come in the community in which we operate in. They have to be exposed and experience the communities that we're in. And when I say that community, that's the Texas Tech community. I've seen a lot of kids with a lot of talent. They just didn't have the necessary resources to get them to where we all are today. But very bright and very talented. And so I think what we have to work on is not necessarily having people pick from that pool that you think might want to go to college. We have to choose from that pool that we know are capable of going to college. Because I'm one of those kids. I'm one of those kids, very talented, or should I say very competitive. Okay, I don't know about the talent. But when you look at my background, I could have been one of those kids that never made it to college. But because someone networked for me, I made it to college. And then once I was in college, it's because of the people that were there at Texas Tech that created who I am. And I'll speak on behalf of Marcia Sharp. Okay, you're going to graduate. And when you graduate, we need to know what you're going to do. And let me tell you, I tried to run as far from Lubbock as I possibly could when I graduated. And it just so happened that I interviewed with LISD and with Estacada, and I was informed that just because you did what you did, don't mean that you take it and you go somewhere else. Come back and prove to somebody that what you did, you can make an impression on other kids. And that was the girls' basketball program at Estacada. And from that, it just sucked me in. And so I basically live a life of trying to put people in a position where they can prove or they can create their better selves. So going back to closing that gap between Texas Tech and the communities, you all can go to the community, but if you want to close that gap, bring the community to you.
Thank you all for sharing. This is our last question before we open it up to the crowd. Can you share a lesson you've learned at your time in Lubbock that you want to share with the viewers and student athletes specifically to help them stay motivated or committed to a passion or interest they have?
I got lots of stories, but I'll just share one. In my business, you'll find that you do lots of your work happens over the telephone or remotely, or a lot of the business that we do happens before anybody ever sees your face. So a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to do some work with some guys, and I'm on the phone with a guy from Dallas. He's not from Lubbock, so I won't put it in that light. But this businessman was from Dallas, and he was talking to me about a project that's upcoming, and we were trying to get some things worked out on the job we were working on the tech campus. And his cell phone rang, and he said, "Hold on, I got to take this call." So he takes a call, and he tells the gentleman, whatever he told him. And he hangs up the phone, and he gets back on the phone with me. He says, "Man, you know what? I hate doing work with N-words." And I said, "Well, if that's the case, you probably should hang up the phone right now." And he was silent for like 30 seconds. I said, "You don't ever know who you're talking to on the telephone. So you probably should not ever use that kind of language when you're doing business with anyone else." I said, "I'll have the same conversation with your boss as soon as we hang up this telephone." And he hangs up real fast to try to beat me to his boss. But needless to say, long story short, I learned a couple of valuable things in that telephone conversation. Always, it's not about the skin you're in. Always make sure that when you're on the telephone and when you're in those situations, you bring a professional and to the conversation. It's not about bringing a black man to the conversation. It's about bringing an expert and a professional to the conversation. And secondly, hey, put yourself in a situation where the color of your skin doesn't matter. Make sure that the person on the other line still deems you as that expert, and the color of your skin just happens to be coincidental. There's programs in the state of Texas that take advantage of that. We see them every day. The federal government has the same programs. But the fact that I'm a black man, I want that to be coincidental to the fact that I'm a good engineer and we make a hand every time we do a job. So in my mind, I think that's most important with your platform. So I think that bridges socioeconomic disparities. I think it helps in a lot of those situations, just using that thought to make sure we're going to be, the color of our skin is coincidental.
I wanted to answer on the question prior to this one, but that's okay. I can go back. Let me go back. And then I'm hoping I'll come up. Yeah, all right. The question was bridging the gap between the communities in the city and Texas Tech. I think a lot of the things that they indicated are key and crucial. But I think sometimes we just have to let it happen. I think sometimes we just have to be at the grocery store and Johnny sees you and recognizes you so that your face becomes something special, but it also, your being there in the midst of them becomes tangible. I think it's important that we not necessarily have an event to show up, that allow people in the communities to see us just as people, to recognize that we breathe, we eat, we buy groceries. I remember the first time one of my probationers saw me at the grocery store, he almost fell over. And I was like, I eat too. But we'd be surprised as to how people see that. And when they see us, you become someone that they can't touch, someone that they can't engage in. And I think when we allow ourselves those opportunities, we have a greater impact on people that we may not always encounter. I think we make sure that we become intentional in making sure that things happen. I drive all over the city. The mayor and Mayor Pro Tem will tell you, I come back and tell them I drive everywhere because I need to know. I want to see. Not so much that, and it's strange, I'm going to change something about me because people always know who I am. But not for that, but just to see what's going on someplace else. So when I get ready and I come back to council to make decisions, if I don't know, if I haven't gone and taken the time to learn and see what's going on, I have nothing to bring to the table. So I would just invite, the events and all of that, that's great. But sometimes it's really impactful to just show up. You know how when your mama just show up to your school? That type of stuff that it makes a huge impact. You recognize and you know what I'm saying? So those things. So I invite you to make those things happen. So I just wanted to say that on that. And man, I'm trying to think of some experience. Man, I'm trying to think of, So
While
much.
she's thinking, I will say, bring yourself. Just be who you are in that space. And bring yourself the first time. As Lauren Hill say, don't send your representative. Just come, be who you are, and give your very best. And in subsequent interactions, events, then they'll say, okay, I know exactly who Reagan is. So when I say something, you're like, you're not surprised by what I said because I've shown you who I am. And people are going to take it, they're going to leave it. But I've been genuine always. So there's something you can never say, she lied. No, I didn't. You know who I am. And I think that has brought me to a lot of tables at Texas Tech because I have been authentic. And some things that I have said, they could have been a little more polished, granted. In the moment, the passion spoke and it came out. I am not going to apologize for being my authentic self. The next time I'll say, sit on your hands and wait a little longer. But you know who I am. So I say, bring yourself. You have to work on your refinement, work on your polishing, get some coaches. Okay, I'm going to send this to you. This is what I want to say. Now, can you help me edit this before I say? I do that to this day. I'm like, I need you to help me because this is what I want to say. But even in the polished version, you know that Reagan means what she says. So bring yourself, be authentic every time. And so far it's working for me. And if I have not been in some spaces because of that, then I don't know. And it's not intended for me to be in that space.
I think a lesson that I've learned is, playing high school football there, playing for Coach Kelly, probably one of the, best high school coaches in the state. He kind of taught me expectation and how do you expect to be the best, and of what are you doing, why are you doing that? And so we always had conversations about, what does that mean? If you're going to be the best, then go ahead and give it your all in anything you do. And those are conversations that we used to have. So when I got a chance to, play college football, I always thought about those lessons. What did Coach Kelly teach me when I played quarterback in high school? And I would carry those lessons over. And then when I made All-American, and then it's like, okay, got drafted in the NFL. What was the foundation? And there was expectation of being the best no matter where you go. So I thought, Lubbock, when I was growing up in East Lubbock, I didn't think that there was anything I was lacking. I always thought that I was actually had more. And when I got to other places and I seen other guys, I was just as good as they were, not just athletically, but I was prepared, mentally of expectation of what I wanted to do. So I thought Coach Kelly kind of gave me that foundation. And then the other people that I got around got me, a little bit better. So, my foundation and lesson, I learned how to expect to be what I want to be. And then I would set my goals to be what I want to be. And then I would set out to achieve those goals. So it doesn't matter if you come from Lubbock, you come from New Mexico, you come from Slayton, you come from Littlefield or Levelland. You have to have something that's going to drive you where you want to go. And then you have to have a plan to get there. And there's going to be people along the way that's going to have to help you out. But you got to have a plan because it's not just going to happen by chance.
Well said, Jerry. And as a student athlete, I can honestly say they probably can't see you all on the camera, but you have a good looking group of, and I'll call you all kids because I'm older than you, okay? I'm not too much older than you, but I'll call you all a good looking group of kids. And one of the things as an athlete out at Tech and, graduating and then going into the workforce, one of the things that you all most definitely going to have to be capable of doing, and that is refining your skills at all times. You wear the college banner now, but pretty soon when you graduate and you get out there in the workforce, as Chris stated earlier, you're going to have to be your best. you're going to have to give your best. And in the process of giving your best, be sure that you bring someone along. I visited with Texas Tech athletic department, academic department on several occasions, and Kirby works well with me. But one of the things that we discussed was, you know, you have a great number of athletes that are graduating, and they're graduating, but meanwhile, what are they graduating to? It's important to know that when you walk out that door, walk across that stage, and they give you that piece of paper or that ribbon that with a blank piece of paper and you get your degree later, you have got to know what you plan to do, and whatever it is that you plan to do during the 4 or 5 years that you're there at Tech, utilize that time wisely so that you grow. I have a lot of stories, but I'm an educator, so therefore I won't share a lot of my stories with you so that I can maintain my employment. But I will say the opportunity exists, and as a individual, not just an athlete, but as an individual, you have to maintain engagement.
I can say the biggest lesson that I'll talk about, kind of like you, is I came from the Patterson household, man, and it's a different world in the Patterson household. A lot of folks know my dad, but I had a mom that was something else. Let me tell you. But the thing that was embedded in us is to never quit, never give up. And one of the experiences, you know, we tell mom, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this. And she'd ask us, are you sure that's what you want to do? Because you decide what you want to do. Because once you get in, you're there to the end. You don't have to be the best. Even though she'd stand on the sideline and yell for you like, man, you were making all the touchdowns. Or dribbling, you know, and we weren't doing those things, but it was important that whatever we decided to do, that we stuck with it. And we did not give up. And in the process that we planted seeds for those coming behind us, my granddad had a saying, is that you plant trees today so that those coming behind you can have some shade in the heat of the day, that it's not just for you. So you don't quit, not just for you, but for everybody else that's coming by and seeing you doing what you're doing. So, but I said, man, there were tons of stories, but that sticks. That sticks. And on the council some days, you know, you want to quit. You really do. You want to just, because you're not getting the things that you want or you figure that need to happen. But you don't give up on that. You keep on, you signed up for it, and you get to take everything that comes with it and keep pushing.
And along those lines, if it's not working, you're doing it yourself, ask for help. This is not our burden. And I use burden intentionally, not responsibility. It's not our burden. You cannot do all of this yourself and make the changes all yourself. You start the work, and even when you're starting the work, it becomes too much. You have to ask for help. And I know that's something that a lot of times we struggle with, right? I should be able to do this myself. I am equipped. You are, but you also equipped to ask for help. Allow yourself to receive the help and allow yourself to ask for help. And when the help is asked for, know that it took that student a lot to ask you for that help. So don't dismiss it. Like when they say, I need help, you put all things down to go see that student is helped. Because by the time, and this is my own experience, by the time the student has come, they have done everything that you haven't even thought of to do. So when students ask for the help, and administrators, when the help is asked for, please do your best to assist those students.
That is great. So Kaylee and I's job is over. So we're going to open it up to the crowd. We have time for a couple questions. We have a very long-winded panelist up here, so we're going to keep it brief, beautiful and brief.
Shade.
The shade tree is fantastic.
You said plant the tree. All right. So who in the audience has a question? Perfect. Stand on up. Introduce yourself. Use the mic.
Hello, I'm Simone Watkins. I run track, and I'm the community relations chair for BSAA. Is the mic on? Yes. Okay, perfect. Okay, so this question is coming from someone watching on the stream. His name is Calvin Chisholm. You all inspire many. What inspires you?
I'll start with that. My inspiration's a little different. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that my parents instilled in us that you have to be educated and you have to give your best in order to be successful. So I'll start there, but I'll be honest with you. I'm surrounded by a lot of good folks. I'm surrounded by a great pastor. I'm surrounded by a great business partner. I'm surrounded by great family members that really do inspire me. I'm the 8th of 9 kids, so I'm almost the baby. I'm the baby boy, but I'm almost the baby of the group. So I get lots and lots of advice from older siblings. I got 5 sisters, so I got like 6 mothers. But that's part of my inspiration. So I have lots of conversations with those that are around me, and it means a lot to me. You know, it's not always that you get to have conversations with people that are outside of the profession that also understand who you are. So I grew up in a farming community, so when able to have a conversation with me, you got to understand what a tractor is about. A lot of y'all grew up in the city, so you never saw those kinds of things. But that shade tree that Councilman Patterson was talking about, I wish I had some of those growing up. But ultimately, that's part of my inspiration is just surrounding yourself with good people, people that you can trust, and people that you want to make happy. So that's where I start with my inspiration.
Okay, I was told. And I'll keep it very short, but it inspires me to be able to create opportunities for others.
Okay, yes, ma'am. I'll go to my time on the council. The thing that is very inspiring, because so many things throughout my life has happened to inspire me, but being able to engage with the people in the community, to hear them, hear their concerns, hear their ideas, and just know that they care about what happens in this community. That's inspiring, because sometimes you feel like you're out there by yourself. But to hear someone that may send an email or a call or say, sure do appreciate what you said, I saw that, or can you come? And being invited to engage with the community. So that interaction with the constituents that I serve is really motivating.
I got in this profession as a result of my 8th grade algebra teacher. I was not the best student in math at the time, and she saw something in me and she pushed me. And she was like, you're going to do a little bit more work. I'm going to call your parents. You're going to get these papers signed. And I was like, wait, I need to do better. And my goal in life was to be her. I was going to be an 8th grade teacher, algebra teacher, and that's all I wanted to do. Simply because she showed me that if someone takes the time to acknowledge you and say you are good at something and I can help you be better, then you can do anything. And from that experience, that's all I wanted to do, was just to be her. And as I moved forward, as I went to school, they were like, you can do this, you can do that. My father went to graduate school, so graduate school wasn't new to me. It was more leave to go to school and leave home and get yes, and this is what you do. And I stayed on that track because helping me at 12, 13 has changed my life tremendously. And I see the students that I have impacted, be they male, female, black, white, that somebody recognizes that I acknowledge them. And then I say, this is something that you can do. And then when you see them do well, even if I don't get the acknowledgement, when you see them do well, you're like, my purpose has been served. So I'm inspired by continuing to help me at that age.
Fantastic question. Next one. Stand up, introduce yourself.
No.
Hi everyone, I'm Kiara Lester. I'm on the track and field team and I serve as the social media relations for BSAA. A question from someone on Zoom asked, Ron Richardson, how can we remove the stereotypes that Blacks can only be good athletes?
Jerry, you want to start that one off for us?
I didn't hear that. What was the question again?
How can we remove the stereotypes that Blacks can only be good athletes?
Well, to me, I think, the biggest thing you can do is, again, I always look at all the other avenues that's out there. And my avenue when I was growing up is, okay, it was the same type of stereotype that we had, that blacks couldn't be good quarterbacks. You know, I played quarterback in high school, and I didn't see anyone that looked like me in the NFL. I didn't even hardly see anybody look like me in college football. Well, today, if you look at college football, there's a lot of blacks that play quarterback, and even in the NFL. So I think we have to be able to keep knocking on the door and getting the people to understand that we can be more than what you put us in, that little box that you put us in. And it's the same thing that I think we can do in the real world. You know, when you look at the vice president right now, you know, number one, female, number one, black and Asian. So now there's little girls that can say, you know what, she looks like me. I can aspire to be a vice president or even a president of the United States. And the more I think we can get examples of people and keep those examples in front of us, then that'll give us a chance to want to aspire to be what we see. That's why, like the foundation, my foundation is more of a visual deal. I want you to see what you can be, because the hardest thing to do as a little kid is to get them to see the vision that they want to go to. You know, you pick out scriptures of the Bible, and they're always talking about being your vision. And so I'm big into that. I get my guys to see something that they're not. And if I can get you to see that, then you can become what you see. Even though you're not there yet, you got a chance in your mind to actually achieve what you're going to get, because the mind is so powerful. You know, you can be dreaming, and your body will not know if it's you actually physically doing it or you mentally doing it. That's how powerful the mind is. So I think we have to be able to use our mind a lot stronger than we're actually doing it, and use our mind in a visual way of where we want to go, not where they're keeping us from going. And I'm a positive person, so I'm always looking for the positive side of things. And I want us to start looking at where we can go other than where we're not being able to go right now.
Noah?
My name is Noah Creighton. I run track and field at Texas Tech. I'm from Chandler, Arizona, and I serve as the Education and Engagement Chair on the BSAA. And this question is from Paige Saunders. She asks, it has been a very tough year for many people all across the United States. Not only has COVID-19 been running rampant all over the nation, but it has shown a negative light on racism and privilege in America. What gives you hope moving forward? What gives you hope moving forward?
I think after we have seen crisis after crisis, we've seen the Black Lives Movement, we've seen the insurrection at the Capitol, and throughout all of that, we're sitting here and we're discussing it. And it's kind of a forced discussion right now, but it should be an ongoing discussion, because all that we saw during the summer, actually as of March until January of this year, all that we saw, that gave everyone, no matter what color you are, no matter what ethnicity you're from, no matter what your economic value is, we saw people that were damaged. We saw people, innocent people, that were out and they were crying out just to be acknowledged. We saw things to take place in this world that we had no control over. We're wearing masks. We're wearing masks because we're in a crisis with the virus. Any one of us in here can actually walk out of here and not see tomorrow. If that doesn't move us to think about what our next step should be towards humanity, then we'll never change. But I think with all that has taken place, there's hope for me that when you see me, you see me as an equal. When you see me as an equal. When you see her as an equal. When you see him as an equal. And so that's my hope moving forward in society. And I honestly feel like the majority of the people will think about what they used to think about, but they're willing to change. Because we all have resources that we can share. We all of the same humankind, but meanwhile, there's so much embedded in us to make us think different. If it wasn't for you guys, and I'm looking at some of you all are athletes, it wouldn't be possible, and I'm going to look past the city council, it wouldn't be possible for Kirby to do his job, for other coaches to do their job. So we're all working towards the same thing, and that is for everyone to be happy and everyone to live a great life.
All right.
I'm trying to say the thing that gives me hope is when I see that we have young people who are willing to stand up and say that some things need to be different. It gives me hope, the courage that I see in so many of the young people and their willingness to take a stand and call for conversations to begin to happen that weren't happening before. As I stated earlier, there's tons of other conversations that need to happen. But the fact that we have folks that are willing to begin those conversations is crucial and is very vital. So for me, that gives me hope.
Perfect. That was great. Adrian Fry, got a question?
Okay, I'm Adrian Fry. I play football at Texas Tech. I play corner. I'm currently not an e-board member, so I'm kind of an outcast. But this is a question from Yvonne Whaley. Ooh, that was loud. This is a question from Yvonne Whaley from the audience. She says, as a woman, how can I prepare myself to enter space that is predominantly white and male?
Be brief.
Heels, put your heels on.
I won't answer as a woman, but I can sure tell you as a person of color, it's going to be different. I was like Reagan's kids. I sat in a classroom of 30 kids, and I was the only black kid in class. So as I grew up, I became accustomed to the fact that I had to have my mind right. It didn't bother me what color my skin was. I had to perform as good as any kid in class. It's not going to be any different when you go out there in the real world as a woman. You're going to have to perform and be as good as, or maybe even better than the lady that's sitting next to you in the desk. I'll be honest with you. You're probably going to have to be better just to be seen as equal. That's just commonplace. That's why we're having this conversation tonight. So I'll tell you for sure to make sure that you have your faculty straight and make sure that you're willing to make some sacrifices. It's going to take some extra time. It's going to take some extra long nights. Those same nights that we all put in, you're going to have to sacrifice. They don't go away with college work. I'll be honest with you. It goes and continues with you for the rest of your career. So don't be intimidated by it. Just get in where you fit in and make yourself at hand. That's all I can say.
I would say, so two things. Make sure that you have a good support system. I am not sitting here because of myself at all. I have a tremendous support system. My husband is my number one supporter, day in, day out. Before that, it was my parents, day in and day out. So create a support system in which you can be your authentic self, a place where you can just let it all out, and then you can say, okay, now I need to get myself back together to go into the world. To be successful in this space that's not created for us, sometimes it does not want me to be there. I think a lot of my success has come from just being observant, taking in what's happening in the space, getting to know the people that are sitting at the table, right? The people that make the decisions, the people that have been successful, the people that have failed, learning from their experiences and then finding out how that fits in and what I see for myself. So there's no one do this, two do that, three do this. There's no exact path to success. Just know that you have to be prepared, know the people that are in the room. And one thing that I had to learn is, what are you going to do when you don't get the response that you anticipated? And not that you were anticipating failure, but prepare yourself in the presence that it's going to come. And I'm getting better at that, let's be honest. I'm getting better at that. But prepare yourself for the plan B, basically.
I would say, as a Black woman in a space that is predominantly male, run, and it was the same. It was no different when I was a supervisor in juvenile probation. It was a world that was mainly where men were in charge of the programming or what have you within that organization. And my main thing was that I needed to know why I was there. Why I was there, what I expected to happen, what I expected to do when I was in that space. And as Dr. Higgins said, just pay attention to what's going on around you and not always be emotional about the things that happen. You can take that home and be as emotional. I have a field that I go to, and I scream and yell as loud as I want to and kick up somebody's dirt. I don't even know whose field it is. But what I'm saying is having an outlet so you can do those things, because a lot of times those are not the things that you can bring to the table and get things done. But number one, know why you're there and be willing. I think it was said earlier, be willing to make the sacrifices to get those things done and be willing to work with the people that you're sitting with.
As a woman, making it in the field where people don't necessarily look like you, nor are they the same gender as you. Never relegate yourself to a lower standard because of what they say about you. Always stand tall, and look at the women around you, and be sure that you use them as your mentors as to how to move forward. And Ms. Patterson just said, leave your emotions at home. I wish we could tell men that. And no, the reason I said that, one of the things that we have to understand as women is that no matter what it is that you choose to do, or you choose to challenge, or you choose to be, you can be that. Jerry Gray just said something about Kamala Harris, Vice President, United States Vice President. She has opened the doors for a lot of young women. In other words, she's probably at close to the highest level that a woman has ever been seen. And so therefore, the sky's the limit for all of us, even us older women. The sky's the limit. Move forward.
And don't forget, Coach Gray used a lot of those coaching words earlier. He talked about your plans. He talked about your goals. He talked about where you want to go. Don't forget those things, because those are important when you go into your workplace. You got to have the same goals. You got to have the same plan. You got to know where you want to be. And if someone's better than you, just like they are in athletics, there's always someone better than you. You got to make yourself as good as that person beside you. Or if you can't, you got to take everything that they have and use it to your advantage. So whatever they put in your head, whatever they got in their head, you got to take it and put it in your head, and you keep it. So later on, you can use it and you'll be better than them because you have it.
I'm going to say something that's going to be contradictory, okay? Sometimes it's not about, in my opinion, there's space for everyone.
Sure.
So I don't necessarily have to be better than you at you, because that's what you do. I'm going to be the best at me and what I bring. So yeah, I'm not in competition with you per se. Reagan, are you doing your best today? Some days you do, some days you don't. And if I do my best 90% of the time, then I'm happy with myself. So there are some things that you have to grow into to know that I recognize these qualities in Chris, but I'm not going to necessarily be better at Chris at those things, because that's what's in Chris. But as long as I've done the best at what Reagan can do, then things should be, it's good. I believe there's just space for success for everyone, and I'm not going to compete with you for something that's mine.
Okay, I do have a follow-up question. So, how would you all approach a situation where your peers don't exactly partake in the same activities that you do to bring upon the success of our community?
Repeat that for me.
How would you go about
Bringing your peers into.
bringing your peers
In other
into how you reach and fight for
In other words, what
for
you're
our
saying
struggle?
that you're active in your community. How
Yes,
do you
ma'am.
bring your peers in? How do you recruit them? How do you motivate them? How do you motivate them to become a part of the activity that you want to engage in so that your community becomes better?
Yes,
You know what? The best way is to model engagement. And if 5 people are looking at you, more than likely, 4 of them are going to follow your lead. But if you never lead, nobody follows you.
And it's tough. It's tough. We all been there. Ultimately, some of the folks you grew up with, you hang out, they don't have the same aspirations as you do. But at some point, you might just have to separate from that. But if you do lead, they will follow. And the ones that choose not to, then you can look back and say, man, I tried to get you to go with me a long time ago.
Jerry, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think the thing that you can't be afraid of is to lead. I think a lot of times, when you in your neighborhood and you go back, or if you are a good football player, basketball player, whatever, lawyer, doctor, and you go back there, you can't be afraid to be the leader of that group. Sometimes, it's harder to be a leader because you have to be more transparent. But I think at the end of the day, if you want to go somewhere and there's other kids that are watching you, they want to do something, but they may be afraid to do it. But I think you can't be afraid to lead. Just like the panel talked about earlier, you can't be afraid to step out and say, you know what, I'm going to lead, and then there may not be my friends go with me. I may have to go out there by myself, but at least you have that chance to be that leader. And then there may be a generation behind you that says, you know what, this person did that, so I can go do that. And so, again, at the end of the day, you can't be afraid to step out on faith and be a leader, because leaders, they're not born. Trust me, there's guys around this league. They not born with a silver spoon in their mouth. They have to work to get what they want. But at the end of the day, mostly all the guys that are here that step up to the next level, those guys are not afraid to go and lead. And so you can't be afraid to lead on where you're trying to go.
Perfect. I think we're doing good on time. So, say all that to say, I have a lot of notes here, little gems. So a couple of key takeaways, and I know everybody in this audience and watching at home has some, but let it happen. Just show up. We are human. We are here. Bring yourself the first time. Don't bring your representative. We can be more than the box you put us in. You can't be afraid to lead. And obviously, this is a conversation that is the first of many. So I want to thank Kaylee for being my co-moderator, for stepping into this opportunity that you were voluntold for, and for shining bright. Thank you to our 5 panelists for engaging in this crucial conversation and this dialogue that we need to continue to have. But we started today, so all we can do is now move it forward to tomorrow and the days to come. Thank you for everybody here in person, socially distanced, wearing your masks, for engaging in this conversation with us. Everybody that's at home, thank you for engaging. Thank you for learning. Thank you for leaning in to this uncomfortable conversation. And we look forward to having more like this. Have a good night.